3 months have passed since that day, and for 3 months, Subaru and Rem lived a quiet life in Kararagi. After taking a carriage to Kararagi, Rem and Subaru began to make plans on where to stay. Temporarily, they stayed at a small apartment building which was very cheap, and it showed. The apartment consisted of a tiny living room, furnished with a beige, moth-eaten couch, wall-mounted candlesticks, a chair which may have well been the sofa's color scheme but was too dirty to tell, and a wooden nightstand, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom that was small enough to pass for a walk-in closet. Subaru states he would sleep on the couch so Rem could sleep on the bed. A window is located in the living room and bedroom, adorned with whitish curtains. Subaru opened a window upon entering their room to diminish the horrible smell of tobacco that clung to the air. Well, this seems as good as it's gonna get as of now. Subaru turns around and puts a hand on his hips, giving Rem a toothy grin. If Subaru is happy, then Rem is happy. And if Rem is happy, then Subaru is happy. Rem happily expresses her willingness to follow wherever Subaru goes, and do whatever he feels is right. That's just how Rem was when it came to her Subaru. Ever since Subaru saved her from an early death by getting mauled by demon beasts, she felt she was in debt to Subaru and decided to protect him. Over time, those feelings began to develop into something more beautiful. When it came to employment, Subaru got a job of being a delivery man, taking packages to their destinations while not needing to know much about the written language of this world was just what he needed. But he did study during his off time, as it would help tremendously. The job tested his patience. Dragon traffic was a lot worse than it sounded. At one point, it may have been cool to see a bunch of ground dragons in one area, but has gotten used to it so much that it is just like normal traffic in the normal world. Rem, on the other hand, was able to land a job at a local bakery. Using her skills as a head chef at the Roswell mansion, Rem would create the necessary doughs within minutes. Decorations for the cakes and such were a piece of cake. Using her sweet presence, Rem basically became the mascot of the bakery. Becoming a model employee within days, Rem was assigned her own workstation up front where pedestrians could catch her making pastries and breads. This resulted in more customers, which also resulted in Rem getting a raise. In no time, Rem and Subaru were able to afford to buy their own little house within 2 months of entering Kararagi. A lovely 2-bedroom, one which came with a bare bed already, 1 bathhouse that had a nice sized kitchen, and a living room that was slightly larger than the kitchen. To save money, they only bought the bare essentials. Over dinner on their first night staying at the house, Subaru brought up a topic that had been on his mind ever since they bought the house just a day ago. Rem, I'm gonna head to the market after dinner to buy a bed for him and all. Rem was puzzled as to why Subaru wanted to spend more money on a bed when they could both sleep on the one the previous owners left them. Why, Subaru, does thoughts of sleeping next to Rem displease you? No, that's not it at all. I just thought you would want your own personal space is all. Subaru replied frantically after seeing Rem's frown and hopelessly cute eyes. Damn, she's good. Well, that's good. At first I thought you were getting sick of Rem. Well, now we can save money if we sleep in the same bed. Rem blushes, covering her mouth with her hands. This gesture caused Subaru to also blush. When it came to Amelia, Subaru was just always the flirtation one after giving her compliments and love. But with Rem, Subaru is the one receiving all the love from Rem, and Subaru has no idea what to do with it. Maybe it has something to do with never having a girl flirt with me in my homeworld. This thought was a question directed to himself. Nah, I'm just nervous with Rem since I live with her now. After this thought, Subaru brought up another topic he wanted to know. Well, what should we use the extra room for then, Rem? Rem put a finger to her lips and looked up to the ceiling in a thinking position. Well, we could turn it into a guest room later on, so when Big Sister visits, she'll have a place to stay. Rem smiles at this. Subaru, however, does not. Rem's statement hit him like a ton of bricks. Subaru never told Rem of the Roswell Mansion catastrophe, and doesn't plan to anytime soon. The day they arrived in Kararagi, Subaru made it a big priority to keep Rem away from the news of how the Roswell Mansion was burned down, along with the nearby village, by keeping her occupied. The news stated that the bones were found at the burned down mansion. While the bones were unidentifiable, there was no doubt that they belonged to his friends. Subaru tried to ignore the fact that he abandoned his friends, and it ultimately led to their deaths. But he could never let Rem know. She would never forgive him. Rem would blame him for the death of her dear sister. Knowing of how deep of a relationship Rem and Rem had together, Subaru felt Rem would leave him if she found out. There was something he wasn't sure he could handle because now he couldn't help the fact that he loved Rem. Rem, his sweetheart, his rock, and his shoulder to cry on. Whenever his past memories of the damned came back to him, dragging him down deeper into his own dark thoughts, Rem would be there to save him. "What's wrong, Subaru?" Rem would often ask him on this occasion whenever she would catch him staring off into space. She tugged lightly at his sleeve, sitting next to him at the living room window. Snapping out of his trance, Subaru looked over to see Rem in a beautiful, elegant white dress, with floral patterns scattered throughout it. The dress reached down to her knees, showing her beautiful legs. Her blue eyes reflected Subaru's face, and he saw the solemn look he was giving. Hiding his expression behind a quick smile, he replied to Rem, "I'm fine, Rem. I was just thinking about my parents again." This was Subaru's excuse for his dark moments. While he did miss his life in the other world, he knew his parents were safe. They were strong people. He was sure they wouldn't go down easy in any situation. "Don't worry about me. I'm sure they're happy wherever they are." Rem is also sure that they miss you and that they love their Subaru. Rem leans on Subaru's arm, pressing her cheek into his bicep, taking in his warmth. Rem silently purrs, enjoying the feeling of having Subaru next to her. "Do you want to go to the plaza tonight, Rem?" The nearby plaza was a great area to have fun and get a good meal. Also, it was a great place for merchants to set up shop and sell their latest foods. Conveniently located near a park, it was popular among children to explore. However, Rem still wasn't done with Subaru. Subaru still misses his family. "Why do you avoid talking about such things?" "I just don't think they would want me around." Subaru had to come up with a quick lie to avoid telling Rem the painful truth. "I wasn't exactly the most loving son when I loved them. Before I left, I was a mere boy standing in the shadow of his own father. I resented him for it. I treated him coldly as if he had directly done something horrible to me." The pain he felt earlier was replaced with this new feeling of guilt. Subaru's vision began to cloud up as water began to drop from his eyes. He didn't deserve it. My dad was the best. He was funny, smart, charming, brave, and strong. Everything I was expected to be since I was his son. I couldn't become like him. But Subaru is all those things he told me he wasn't. Rem lifts her head from Subaru's arm and turns his head towards her, looking into his eyes. Subaru always makes Rem laugh. We'll laugh together about the future. That was about what you said to me. And even if Subaru does stupid things, he does so under the best impressions, even if they have horrible consequences. Like back when I had lost myself in the forest and didn't know who I was. You saved Rem and brought me back to a clearer mind. When I was too weak to move and Big Sister was too tired to fight, you distracted the monsters away from us. Rem caresses Subaru's cheek, wiping away his tears from his face with her hands, and giggles when Subaru blushes at her actions. Subaru fought in a battle he didn't have to fight, one he surely would have died in. Without Subaru, Big Sister and I would be dead. To Rem, Subaru is the bravest and most charming man Rem has ever known. Rem. Subaru begins but is immediately interrupted by Rem. Well, to be honest, Rem was usually in the mansion all the time, so I didn't get to see many other men. Subaru thought about what Rem just said. Well, that last part doesn't help at all. Yelling this brought Subaru back to his senses. As always, Rem's speeches and flirting reignited Subaru's perspective on life. This brought a gentle smile to Rem once again, for she knew her hero was no longer hurting. Deep down, though, she knew that Subaru was still aching, and the only way to solve this problem was to see his parents. How far away could they be, right? Rem still thinks Subaru is a wonderful person. You may not believe it yourself, but to Rem, Subaru is as heroic as any hero one finds in storybooks. Rem says this while touching the tip of Subaru's nose with her finger. Well, I guess I can say the same thing about Rem, for she is as beautiful as any flower in a meadow, and as sweet as any pastry she can make. With a wink, Subaru replies to Rem in a loving manner. Rem smiles and kisses Subaru on the cheek, something Subaru never saw coming from such a beautiful girl. Rem continues to cuddle up next to Subaru once again, enjoying his body heat. Despite how much he would love to stay in that position for the rest of his life, his stomach had other, more delicious ideas. So, Rem looked up at the sound of Subaru's voice. Plaza? Rem answers with a cute smile.